and Joshua. It can't be done. But they did it anyways. They said, oh yeah, we can do it. This is more than optimism. This is more than just looking at the glass as half full, half empty. This is something that drives them, that makes them stronger. What a spirit for us to look at as a hero. Amen? I mean, Caleb is something else. I mean, think about it. He's 85 years old. That's a little bit older than me. I hope that when I'm 85, I can say that I have all the strength that I have when I'm 40. Actually, I'd prefer the strength I had when I was 20. I'm trying to get back to that strength. But you see what I mean? What a shining example to us. I think all of us have examples like that in our life. I know I've shared some stories about my grandmother with you guys. My grandmother is one of those people. My grandmother passed away back in February. Actually, this week I've been trying to stop saying that she passed away. My grandmother did not pass away. She graduated. And she went home. Amen. She is where she belongs, and she is happy. But I remember she was in her late 70s. This is a woman who said, I have done a lot of different mission trips. This is a woman that when she lost her husband, she decided she was going to raise her son alone, by herself, without the help of family. And she did it, while she simultaneously ran a boys' home and taught school. This is a woman who had no husband other than the Lord in her life at that time. Several times over, she had no husband but the Lord in her life. And that was her husband, and that was good enough for her. And when she reached her late 70s, she decided that she had done the domestic missions. She'd raised boys in a boys' home. She'd raised my dad. She had worked with people that were dying of terminal illness. She had worked with their families and trying to help them cope. She had, let's see, what else has she done? She's done a lot of things up to this point. But she decided one thing she had left to do for God was to go into the foreign mission field. She never had the money. She never had the opportunity. She lived week to week, month to month on a widow's severance from the government. And she made it work. But she raised money, and she went to Mexico when she was in her late 70s and worked with an orphanage down there. For 2 weeks she lived in Mexico, and she worked down there as diligently as she could, teaching the children, teaching the people, but also making repairs to the orphanage, working in the fields with them. She helped them grow their vegetables and harvest their vegetables that they were harvesting at the time. She helped the ladies in the kitchen make tortillas. And I remember thinking, that's my grandma. She just never stops. And I remember when we went and listened to the spiel afterwards, you know how everybody comes back from a mission trip, they got to give the little presentation afterwards. I was listening to the people give the presentation afterwards, and they said they had one complaint about my grandmother, that she made the rest of them look bad. They said we could not slow her down. We couldn't stop her. We couldn't get her to shut down for 5 minutes. She didn't understand why everybody wanted to take a siesta in the afternoon. There was plenty of things to do, even if you weren't doing them outside in the heat. They struggled with slowing her down. Some people referred to my grandmother as stubborn. And yeah, she probably was. But I can't help but think that it was her desire to serve God that drove her. It was her desire that whenever people would say, it can't be done, she would say, watch me. We'll know it can't be done when I fail. At age 90 and 92 respectively, my grandmother had her knees replaced. It's a little late. But she thought, well, they said it would give me 15 more years. Okay. So at 90 and 92, she had her knees replaced so that she could continue to do the work for God. She ran a food bank. She worked in a housing department, not too different than Heather Gardens. It was a HUD housing. She lived in there, and she ran 2 Bible studies in that building. She drove people to and from church up until she was 93. At that point, we finally said, you have to give up your driver's license. And she agreed, and she got somebody else from the apartment complex to drive her and her friends to and from church. And then that lady started going to church with them too, since she was driving them. She just never gave up. My grandmother was one of the most tenacious people I've ever met. But I'm blessed by God to have another example in my life of somebody who is that tenacious. I mean, we're blessed because the Bible is full of people that are like that. Heroes that we can look upon. For some of us, those heroes have gone on, like my grandmother. But for some of us, we have heroes living amongst us right now. And that is what I am blessed with. I have a hero living amongst me right now. And I honestly didn't think he was going to be in the room, but he is. But I have a hero that is just as tenacious as my grandmother. She left that legacy behind with her great-grandson, Remington. Remington, last week in rugby practice, they told him to go up against the biggest kid on the pitch. The pitch is the field. So he goes up against the biggest kid. And this kid is big. I mean, there's very few people that are as big as me in this world. This kid was close. And he's under age 12. He's a big kid. Apparently from Samoan descent. Honestly, he is from Samoan descent. I'm not making a joke. He was. His parents were there, and I got to meet them. And they give the kid the ball, and he runs at Remington. And Remington breaks down the tackle and tries to wrap up, and the kid runs away from him. Just kind of runs through him. And he gets up, and the coach starts to give a little correction to Remington. You need to go a little bit lower, Remington, and when you wrap up, you need to grab with your hands and not let go. And he goes, Coach, let me do it again. And Coach said, okay, somebody else get the ball here. And Remington says, no, I want him. And he picked that big kid again. And I'm standing there watching this, and his mom's standing there watching this. We're thinking, oh no, I really don't have time to go to the hospital tonight. I really don't. Remington lines up. And this kid comes running at him with the ball again. Remington breaks down the tackle, and he wraps up on the guy's legs, and he's grabbing hold of his socks. And Remington is laying on the ground, and this kid is trying to walk forward, and the kid's going, and Remington is just hanging on, and he won't let go. And the kid finally stops and turns around and looks at Remington. And he looks at the coach, I can't move. And the coach is just floored. I mean, his mouth just drops. And he says, tackle made. Get up, Remington. Great job. He says, that is the kind of spirit we are looking for in our rugby players. He says, Remington is the smallest guy, and this other guy is the biggest guy, and he doesn't give up, no matter what the cost is. He's extremely tenacious, and he's not going to surrender. Well, this Saturday was Remington's first game of the season, Remington and Barrett's. They both did very well. And I'm saving Barrett's story for another time. But this Saturday, they told Remington, Thursday at practice, they said, we have what we call the A team and the D team. Not A and B, because they're not a classification of rank. They said, we have the A team over here, that these are accelerated students of rugby. They've been in it longer, they're older, they're a little bit bigger. They're closer to that 12-year-old mark. They understand the game a little bit differently than the next group, the D team. The D team is the developmental team. We're trying to teach them the basics of rugby so we can teach them the more complex plays that they're teaching the A team. They practice together as if they were one unit. But on game day, they split them up. And they told Remington, we love your drive, and we think in our hearts, we know that you are an A team member. But they said, we need you on the D team. Because we need you to be an example to the other kids of how to have that ferocious tenacity and that drive. I couldn't help but be so proud to see my little hero out there. he went out on the D team. And he orchestrated, he's still the shortest kid on the D team. He orchestrated that battle. They lost 16-0. But he orchestrated that battle, and he never gave up. He never cried. He never broke down. When his teammates were breaking down, he went over there and said, let's get back in the game, guys. It's not over. Cheer up. We're not down. We're going to win this. Let's get back in it. And he'd line his team up. He wasn't even the captain of the team. But that's what he did. And at the end of the game, the coach came to him and said, we're not going to call you Remington anymore. You have a new name. And he said, okay, what's my new name? He said, your new name is Patton. Because you were a general on the field. Happens to be that one of my biggest military heroes in life is General S. Patton. And for my son to be called that and referred to in the same context, can't even tell you how that makes me feel. But he has a tenacity and a drive that just makes me want to be like him. Makes me want to be like my grandmother. Makes me want to be like Caleb. And never, ever give up. It doesn't matter how old we are, and it definitely doesn't matter how young we are. We can all be heroes in this world. We can all serve God as heroes in our church and in our community. In this day and age in America, we need heroes more than ever. We know that. We're struggling. We need heroes in our lives. And this weekend, we honor those who have fallen on the field of battle to serve us. I think we honor them better on Tuesday morning when we go out and be the heroes that we're supposed to be. The heroes that they were. I want us to honor them this weekend with a joyous celebration. I hope you guys all have plans for something great tomorrow. But I want us to look around. Look around this room. Look around our neighborhoods. Look around our jobs on Tuesday morning. Look around in our families. There's heroes there. And they need to be encouraged. And they need to be driven. I want us to look at our children. And I want us to look at our grandparents and even our great-grandparents. And I want to see the heroes that are inside of them. The ones that inspire us to do great things. The ones that drive us. Most importantly, I want us to wake up tomorrow morning and I want us to look into the mirror. And I want us to see the hero that God has made us in the mirror. As we continue with our battleship theme, I want us to understand that the battleship that we are on needs heroes. Not just one or two. Each and every one of us. This weekend is about honoring those who have passed away, but it's also about finding the courage to become the hero that this country, that this world, and that this battleship needs. If you have the liturgy, not brought it, I handed those out. We're going to read that. This is a liturgy about urban wilderness. The urban wilderness is the city in which we live. We can deny it all we want, but we live in the urban wilderness. I will read the faint lines. You guys read the bold lines. O God, grant us peace in the midst of noise, in spite of the chaos, in the face of fear. It is in losing life that we find it. Give us courage to let go of which we protect ourselves, that which we deny the world as it is, and that which we distance ourselves from others. God of the city, made Church Street today, where your voice catching your eye, glimpses of you and the people pass, your image reflected 1,000 times, 1,000 ways. In the city, give me your grace, another way. Foundation in the city, frustration too. Teach me to see you in both equally. To retreat in myself. God of the city, let me be as Christ in the street today. Bring me the confused and misdirected with their fractured English and their dog-eared maps. Guide me on the stairs to mothers with pushchairs and travelers with too much luggage. Bring me to the homeless, the hungry, the ones who woke up in the gutter. Sit me next to the mumblers, the shufflers, the lonely, the lost, and the lame. Send me the angry and frustrated. If there is an aggressive drunk on the bus tonight, let it be my bus. Your kindness, your acceptance, let me be the first to see my helping hand on the word. Lord, have mercy. I will leave you with one parting quote. Dwight D. Eisenhower once said, "Every tomorrow has two handles. We can take hold of tomorrow with the handle of anxiety or with the handle of faith. The choice is yours."